Okay, let's see. So today we're going to talk about Moodle and Google and how the different ways that we can get things back and forth. Unfortunately, Mr. Studebaker is going to be here today to talk more about the Google Classroom side, which I have never done. So I really can't talk about Google Classroom and how to use Google Classroom. And that was the thing Dan was going to talk about in general. Google Classroom, really, if you're doing a lot of Google Docs, is a way to get docs out and docs back more cleanly. You don't have to use Google Classroom at all. In fact, with the new repository thing, you don't have to at all, right? So I guess I'll show you what I'm talking about on that. It used to be, before we found the add-on to do it, that if you wanted to collect an assignment from a student that you allowed them to do a Google Doc, and I'm going to just call this from paper, just so I have that filled in so I can save it. Whenever I do an assignment, I allow both online text and file submissions, which allows them to either upload the Word document, or online text has always been for them to submit the link to their Google Doc, which Google Classroom obviously pulls it right in, puts it in a folder, and that's really nice. So I've always done it that way. Now, I'm going to go and hit save and display there. Now, if a student wants to turn something in, and I'm going to go ahead and become another student, and I have to add somebody to that demo area. Nobody can see unless they're in the group, so I'm going to add one of my students in the group, just so that they can see it. Seth, and then I'll just become Seth. So if now he wants to submit the paper with the new way, if you guys haven't seen this, and I'm just going to become Seth real quick, which I should have gone and changed them all to hobbits again. I just didn't think about it. Where's my login is? There we go. And by the way, I need to fix that. You guys used to be able to log in as, and I'm not sure why you can't now. I gotta find that. That's another thing I gotta find. It allows you to see what the students see, to see if they're seeing what you want them to see. Because going to student, you can always switch your mode to student mode. But the problem with that is if you use restrictions, like some of us use, that restrict things from being used until you're ready to see them, then you don't see anything in student mode. My course becomes blank as soon as I say look at it as a student, other than my course introduction. So anyways, if he was to go to paper now, and he wants to submit his paper, he's got the fact that he can do it online, or he can drag and drop a paper there, but now he can also do it this way. He can go and say add a file, and one of the places he can add a file from is his Google Drive. Okay. So if I say add a file from my Google Drive, I can't do that when I do it when I'm faking out being a student. I forgot about that. I think I have to log in as him.
Yeah, you'd have to be on Google as him.
I actually have to be logged in to Google as him at the same time. But it just brings up my Google Drive, allows me to search for something, and if you add it in there, then it turns it into a PDF file. So I don't ever have to go to his Google Drive to look at it. Now, the difference between that and sharing a link is that if they share it, they can continue to edit until you go to grade it. Is that a good or a bad thing? Maybe it's a bad thing. If you said that the paper is due on Wednesday, and they submit the link, and you don't have a chance to grade them until next week, they could continue. They could have submitted nothing. They could have submitted a blank Google Doc and continued to work on it and had it and done it a week late before you get a chance to grade it. If they do it this way, it just turns it into a PDF, and they can't edit it again without deleting their submission and re-uploading it. And if you in the submission date, then it shows they're late anyway, right? So I like that, in that I don't have to go out now, and they don't actually have to share the document like they had to do before. Before they had to share it, it shows up in my Google Drive. I have to, I've got tons of things in my shared with me stuff, to the point where that's where a Google Classroom makes it nice, right? Because all those things don't show up in my shared with me folder. This way is nice on the other side because now they can do a Google Doc. It turns a Google Slides into a PDF with each slide. I mean, it does all that, and it does it relatively quickly. So it's kind of nice. I like the flexibility of allowing them to use Google Docs on things because if they're editing it, it doesn't matter. They can get to it from anywhere, and you know. So I guess that's the first thing I wanted to make sure everybody knew how to do. Have you done that before?
Well, Sonia Lopez has been doing it, and Peyton, I haven't had to upload anything. Peyton Lane's the one that I have the most problem with. He does not seem to be able to get his computer, and that's, I haven't talked to him in the last couple weeks about it, but he hasn't been able to get, for some reason, his computer just does not allow you to find those docs. I mean, I've tried. You
mean in Google Drive? Because it doesn't show everything. I will tell you that that's one of the things. I have a ginormous Google Drive.
Yeah.
Over 500 gig is in my Google Drive. My entire hard drive at home is backed up to my Google Drive because there's no limit, and I use Google Drive to back up everything. So my Google Drive is ginormous. So if I go and try, I gotta switch back to being me.
Okay, you've got two musics going on.
No, that is not music. That's my phone.
Oh, okay.
And it's my son who's calling in the middle of the class, and I'm not going to listen to him. He's gonna have to. I'll call him back. I just wouldn't. Sometimes Dan will call and say or somebody will call and say the voice isn't working, but I just checked it was. So you have to know the name of your document sometimes. If I want to, because you could do the same thing now. If I want to post a file, for instance, like we used like to post something, I could do the same thing with the Google Doc. Instead of uploading, I can go here to the file and I can say Google Drive. Now, because I'm not faking as a student, it asks me to log in. That's what it would have done for a student. The exact same thing there. The thing is, it shows a fraction of my drive. I have far more than 4 folders, okay? But if I know the name, it does do a good job of.
But yeah, it's a document I named.
You have to know the name of the document, and then I mean, I couldn't see that anywhere on there.
Okay.
But the document still goes there, and if I go and add that, so I'm going to go ahead and select this file, it automatically converts it, and now it turned it into a PowerPoint on my Google. And if I go, of course it made it goofy, but if I go and click on it, it now made it a link on Google that they can go and click on and open up. So it turns it in from a Google file to a, I get to choose what the defaults are, by the way, that was in the setup. So it changes them in documents and PowerPoints and Excel files if you share one of those. Now, if I really wanted to share that as a Google document, I would share the link to the Google document, which I have in my class in a number of places.
The thing is, if I can say this right, most of the stuff that not all, but most of the stuff that I do, I give them the document to begin with. And then they fill in. They do a lot of filling in with notes and things like that.
Right.
And then really it's up to them to get it loaded. To load it back to me then. So that's probably 80%. And then there are other things that they have to create.
Yeah, and you don't have to use Google Classroom. Like if you want to, like let's say I wanted them, and I know I'm working in Firefox, but it doesn't really matter which one we work in. Okay. But let's say I wanted them to make a use something as a template. Let me. I don't even know what this template is that I have in here. So. Okay, here's a Venn diagram. I must have got this from some class. So if I say I want them to be able to use this, I'm going to share it, and I'm going to share it. So I'm going to change. You know what? I'm going to have to copy it, make it mine first, because I'm not going to be able to change. Well, that's fine. They can only find a view, because I'm going to do the same thing. if I go and make this a link that I want them to be able to use, if I make it so it's open to anybody, like this one just was, but I make it so they can only view, then I say URL add and put in the link down here. Say copy this project. If you save it to anyone, we'll pretend I spelled that right. If we go and make it so anyone with the link can only view it, and you tell your kids that when you get something like this, when you click on it, you just have to go and say File, make a copy that's now yours. Now they can edit it, and you've made a way for it to share a template to them that they can't ever touch, they can't ever mess with. I just need to teach them that in order for them to use this template, they have to make a copy. Now it's going to make a copy of it in my drive that then I have full editing permissions of. I can do whatever I want to. It's one way to make a Google document template that any of your kids then can use. And really Google Classroom does the same thing. If you share a document through Google Classroom, you get to say, can they edit it, or is this their starting copy? And then it just, instead of sharing a document that everyone edits together, it basically gives everyone a copy of it. This is doing the same thing through Moodle. If you don't want to, I mean, like I personally, I know you do it, and Dan does it, and a lot of people do it. I don't want to get into something else. I'd rather know how to just do it in Moodle, just so I can do the same functionality without having them go anywhere else.
Yes.
But some people are comfortable with Google Classroom and would rather do the opposite, do it all in Google Classroom and then link it over here in Moodle, and that's fine. Nobody cares which way you do it as long as it's clear to your kids.
All right, so I have a lot of documents that are, because I've created them in Microsoft, or I mean Word. Okay. And like, I have a Venn diagram that I'm going to be using here when I get back. How hard is that? I mean, is there any difference? Do you want to save them as Google documents or as PowerPoints? Because you can use Google Drive to save them all in one place as PowerPoints too. I could go in Google Drive and I could say new. Why is the other? No, just go to my drive. Shush, I don't want to be in there. Okay, new, and I can say folder, and I could call it social studies. I can't spell social. There we go. Studies. Student items. I'll call it that. Okay. And then you could just take on this folder that you just made. Let's see if I could find it. There it is. I could take that folder. I could go and say that I want to share this and say, okay, I'm going to get a shareable link. I'm going to say anybody with this link can view. I'm going to take that. I'm going to go put it in Moodle real fast. Make it a URL. All shared class items from distributed. Okay, so I just made a folder. I actually am going to come down here and make it not. I'm going to make it a pop-up because I want it to go in a new thing. Okay, so if I was in this class and I clicked on that, it would open up that Google folder with everything that you drop in it. So you on the other hand, you just made this folder. You could take all your items and just go and drop them there. From Word. From Word. Drop it in. And it won't convert it. They'll still be Word documents. Okay. They can click on it. They download them. I'm just saying you can upload them all into Moodle in a Moodle folder if you want to, or you could just use this and just drag them there, and you can make subfolders in here. Now everything that's inside social studies items, whether there's more folders or not, will all have that share. So you've shared anybody that can go here can see everything inside there. So you can make subfolders and stuff if you wanted to. They can only view them, but they can make them their own too. So if you want to put all your templates in one Google folder right there, you don't have to have 20 million links on Moodle. You can have one, say, hey, whenever I tell you where something is, it's always going to be in this folder. And you only have one link that it goes to. If you like keeping stuff there, that's just a drag there. You know you can drag it to Moodle too, right? You can drag multiple things. You can make a folder. If
If you prefer to have it in Moodle, you can do the same thing. I can add a folder down here. It depends on what you're trying to get them to do. If you're trying to get them to open stuff in Google and edit stuff in Google, or if you're just trying to get them to download it, right? So I can say shared items here, and then I can just drag and drop right there, just like I do in Google. It's the same thing. And then they'll all just be links that they can click on to download.
I do that all the time, but I was liking the idea that it was a PDF and they couldn't to copy it then they could edit it, but they couldn't change anything that you've already created, right?
No, if you put it in that, if I share this as view only, I can put whatever I want in there, and they can't change anything that's in here.
But can they?
They would have to download it and edit it, or copy it to their Google Drive to edit it, and they're not touching that stuff at all. That stuff stays there just the way you left it.
But can they, once they download it, can they edit what?
Yeah,
the
yeah, they're just making their own copy of that document someplace else.
But, well, like what I'm talking about specifically is I create a document for them for their notes, and so that I can easily see that they've taken their notes. Well, what's happening now is they're messing with what I've already created.
Okay.
With your format.
With my format, which if I use my format, I can see exactly what they've done.
Okay.
But when they mess with it, then it's harder for me to see, specifically notes.
Well, no matter what, they're going to be able to mess with it. Whether you share it as a Google Doc that they can edit, they're going to be able to mess with it.
Okay.
I mean, I was going to say that that's one of the places that Google Classroom is nice, because you could share a template out, and everybody has their own copy, that they edit their own copy, but they can they're still starting with yours as a template, and they can gobbledygook it all they want.
To make it stay the same would be probably an editable PDF version, because then your stuff is there, and there's a field for them to enter their information.
Yeah.
And that field, I've done that before, and the field that you have limited
size and how much stuff they can do in there. Yeah, that is definitely true. Now, if you add a rubric that says must have these headers, and that's part of their grade, that they leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
But the kids that are messing it up probably aren't the ones that are going to pay attention to the rubric anyway. So.
But if I put it there, then I can snatch some points.
Yeah.
In order to maybe get them to, they were fine at first, but now they know. Oh, if I drop that out, she won't see. She won't know that I missed this whole section. I do see 90% of it, but I can't see it all.
Yeah, I definitely found the downside of doing a project in Moodle today, because with Google, I would be able, if I had used a Google Doc for what we were doing, then you can always go to the revisions and you can find everything. Which I didn't realize a lot of people didn't know you could see all the revisions.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Mr. Fisher thought he deleted all of his admin notes, and I can't get them back. And I'm like, just go to revision history, and I better write back to where he went. He's like, oh my gosh, I thought it was gone forever. Which is nice on a project, right? Especially a project that you have a lot of kids doing. Yeah. And I did not do that today. And one of my students deleted my other students' whole thing they had done today. It's all completely gone. And because it was in Moodle, and Moodle only backs up at night, it doesn't back up throughout the day. Moodle has a recycle bin that if I went and just trashed it, if you've never seen that before, if you delete something in your course, over here in the admin section down here, there's a recycle bin. So I deleted these things, and first, I don't know how long it is, 7 days. For 7 days, I have the option of restoring those items that I did. Obviously, a bunch of these are ones that we just did. But it does not have the option of doing something inside a document. If you just deleted the text in the document, and this was a book, and they were all working together on separate chapters of the book, and one of my students accidentally made the main chapter, which made all the students sub-chapters, and he goes, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Now they're all sub-chapters of his chapter. He deleted himself and deleted all the sub-chapters that it just kind of
Did everybody save their word?
Yeah, and I had said, they said I didn't say this, but I know I did. I'm going to pull it up on the video from the last class. I said it's better if you edit in Google and then just go there and paste it in, because then no one can mess with your stuff. And I said, you had it on Google? You never told us to do that, Mr. Bull. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I did. I'm going to find it on the video from last class, and then I'll put a little snippet there of me saying it. Just because you didn't hear me doesn't mean I didn't say it. So anyway, I mean, one of the ways that we can link together is like that, and one of the other things that and I know I sent an email about it, and I was probably overly excited about getting it to work, but the automatic links and the automatic YouTube, because I use those all the time to other places, and it went away with this year's version, and so getting it back. Do you know what I'm talking about? The email that I sent out the other day.
Yeah.
So if here's a Minecraft crafting thing, if I add that into something now, it automatically turns that into a link that opens. And likewise, if I have a YouTube video that I paste in, if I was to paste this in to Moodle, now I don't have to do anything extra, whereas it's like it was a couple years ago. All I have to do is put the link in, and automatically resolves the embed code and embeds it in the thing. Because I was having to put text and then hit the hyperlink button and then put in a hyperlink, and it was just, we didn't used to have to do that.
No.
I don't know what I did to make it. Well, I figured it out. So anyway, so
you just still go to the URL thing and drop
it's just now you just drop the URL in, and automatically it makes it a link. The other thing that was added the other day is we've always had the ability to this one. That's record with your webcam, which I think I'm going to take away. Who in the world would use that? They record live into a YouTube, into a Moodle, something on their webcam. I think I'm going to delete that button because it's confusing. But you could always insert a video, but now one of the sources of, if I hit browse repositories, now one of my sources is YouTube itself, so I can just look for something on MLA citing and hit search, and it's going to show me all the videos it can find on how to do those things, and I can just go, oh, that's exactly what I want to be able to do, and then I can say select. Now I don't have a way to proof it until I actually watch it, so it's kind of like but I didn't. It's just another way that we can add stuff into our courses that we couldn't do before. Is there anything? I feel really bad, especially because I really was hoping that I was going to learn something from Dan today.
I'm still, and I'm using Chrome more, but I tend to use
Firefox.
Firefox more, but I'm still struggling with the right-hand column disappearing, especially when I'm trying to grade stuff on tests.
The right-hand column disappearing.
Okay, let me see. It probably isn't going to show up on this, but let me show you.
You mean this whole column here? Or what do we call it?
Oh, left hand. What did I say? Right hand. Left hand.
That you...
Well, let me show you what I'm talking about. Well,
are we talking about when we're grading items in the Moodle gradebook here?
When I'm grading, I just was working on it.
I have to scroll out because the screen is so small that...
I don't know if it's going to show up.
And are we talking over here, Deb? This?
Yeah.
Do you want it? Are you saying you want it to go away, or you don't want it to go away?
I don't want it to go away. Let me grab test.
I haven't.
So
I haven't seen.
Doesn't it go away as you scroll across?
No, what I mean is, see, it's not going to do it here. I can tell already.
I will say that I still prefer the new single view when I'm editing, when I'm putting in grade. graphics. Do you use the same view,
I
Deb?
have a question about
Do
the
you use that, Deb?
What do you, what?
Okay, so if I'm going to put in
Oh, yeah,
grades,
I use that all the time.
okay.
I use that
I
all
just
the
think
time.
it's cleaner.
Okay.
When
Yeah.
I'm in the big part, I can alphabetize or sort, like just have one class come up and then like alphabetize or have just the grades going from bottom to top or top to bottom
Right.
or whatever. But when I'm in single view, I can't get it to do that. So whatever,
You can't, let's see, nobody took this test, so you can't get
like I
this
want,
to alter, no, because there's no buttons up here to do that.
right, yeah. I can't get it to like
It
go,
just does it first to last on the last name.
yeah.
I don't know if there's a way, and this would look better if I was zoomed out.
Well,
Um,
I can't remember if, I think before I have to put them in the order, the names in the order that I want them before I go into single view. But if I'm in single view and say, oh,
oh, you're saying if you're already over here at the grade book and you said that you wanted it first name first, like that, and then you go to single view, it's different? I've never done that before, I'll be honest. Let's see. Nope, it still does it.
it still does it
Alphabetically by last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when I've got 24 kids, and I just want it. I want to see the grades low to high to kind of decide what to do. I can't look at it from low to high. I have to
Yeah,
go back out.
there's no way to. Well, this one, I mean, I think the assumption is your grades aren't in yet when you go here. You know, I guess you could have some of them, and you're going back to do those
I'm
people that are
adding
ungraded.
others, yeah, and usually what happens is I want all those who don't have a grade in yet. I want to kind of bunch those
Right.
together and then put them in together.
Which you could do. I mean, you can do that if I'm in a gradable activity. Like for instance, let's say this paper, and I want to go and view the grades. I can.
I can do it in.
I can do it here because
Right,
I can.
yeah.
Which, I mean, I realize is not exactly the same
But-
thing.
Can you change grades in there?
Yeah. In
Oh,
fact,
that's right. I do. Yeah.
Yeah. You're actually. This is where you're supposed to put in the grades. When you put them in single view, you're overriding the grade.
Oh.
The
I thought
The
that
way
was-
Moodle is designed is that it assumes you're going to grade it at the activity itself,
Okay.
and then the grade book lets you override activity grades, whatever that activity is, right in the grade book if you want to, right? So, I mean, really, the assumption is that you are going to put them in here. I don't know what.
Well, this is like I have them write a paper and I grade it, and so I'm entering grades. So this isn't even a Moodle
There we go.
activity; it's just a Moodle grade.
Right.
But yeah, when I have a quiz or something that I give them and it's automatically graded, then yeah, that's where I go to do.
Yeah,
the
and so
essays.
you could kind of do that here.
Yeah.
Why am I only seeing one
Yeah, I was
person
wondering
right
the
now?
same thing.
Because you only have him.
Oh, I only added him to that group. That's
Oh,
why.
okay,
That's
to
why.
that group,
It's because
okay.
I'm in the demo
You're
area.
still
I'm like,
in the
why am I not seeing everyone?
Yeah.
And
But you
honestly,
can.
the reason I have so many things here is I did not in this demo one that I did in. That's one of the reasons it's better when you create an assignment if you uncheck everything that you don't want to use. Like when it comes to the feedback types, it has if they're uploading a paper, then I'm going to use annotate PDF, and I'm not going to use feedback comments. Or by default, it checks both of them, but I don't want both of them. Usually, I only want one or the other. I'm not going to feedback both ways. Although I guess you could. And this, I'm going to delete this one because that ended up doing nothing extra.
So you can actually leave comments on their papers through that?
Yeah, if you use the annotate PDF, you can put stamps, comments. I mean, I have a stamp it says plagiarism. It says there's no plagiarism stamp. So whenever I see like something that they forgot to cite, I'll put a stamp right there on their paper, and then they get to look at the PDF of any type of comments you put. You can draw on it. You can do everything on it. So, I mean, theoretically, with the annotate PDF thing, you don't ever have to get paper at all because you can do everything that you would give back on the paper, which you couldn't do before. If I'm grading an English paper, there's no way just with the feedback text box I can give him quality feedback on his paper, because where does this go? You know, I mean, you can't say bad, you know, bad title or bad entry or whatever in a text box and have them understand where in the paper that you were talking about. Didn't cite this resource. What? So have you never looked at that before?
Well, I've seen it, but I didn't quite get it.
Yeah, so...
and partly because I've never had upload papers, because my 5th graders are like, what? And so we're still just trying to remember to save on Microsoft Word. That's why we're using Google Docs a lot. But now that we have, so I'm trying to kind of understand it so I know how, if I put an assignment in Moodle, how am I going to get their work back? Because at this point they're having to print their work, and then I make all the comments, I write all the comments on their paper.
Okay, so the difference is now, here's the PDF. So they uploaded a document, and again, it's because the screen's so zoomed in. They uploaded the document, and it automatically turns it to a PDF here. If this is the stamp thing, you can add different stamps. That's my new plagiarism stamp. So if I saw plagiarism somewhere in the paper, I can just stamp. You can add any kind of graphic you want. So of course, elementary, you wouldn't have to have lights and smiley faces. But then I can, you know, I can go and say, okay, you know, and then I can add text and say, you know, this was a great title, whatever. I can, so any place in the paper, I can go and add another text box, and you see it just becomes that. So when they're reading the paper, they get a blow up, and then they have to mouse over it to see what we said. So you can type a ton of stuff that's related to that one thing. So it allows you to comment right on the paper. And okay, I'm a paper-free person, because if you give me paper, I will lose your paper. Okay, I'm not good at that. I mean, I do happen to have kept the last presentation only because the test was based on the notes I took, kind of. So, but I'm much better at this and being able to give feedback here, and then they get to see it, what the feedback was. You know, do they read it? I don't know. How many times do they not read an English paper when you hand it back? They look at the top number. Oh, I got an 18 out of 20. Woo! You know, and if it even gets home, you know. So are they looking at it? The good kids are. The kids that are concerned about their grades.
Back into the assignment.
Yeah. So if I was to become Seth again and go into this assignment, I don't know if I saved it, but we'll see. And I go back in as him, and that was in chapter 2. Of course, now he's going to be really confused. That was this paper, and he goes down to the bottom. He sees. I didn't save it. So it would say right here, it'd say PDF with comments or something back on there. And then he clicks on that, it opens it up as a PDF, and he can see all the comments, go over the bubbles and all that kind of stuff. So
can they still resubmit from that?
Can they resubmit?
Like they make the corrections, can they resubmit?
I'm going to say yes. And I think it overwrites, and then your comments are gone if they resubmit. It doesn't keep. I'm almost 100%. I'm almost 100% positive on that.
You can do, and then it saves a transcript of everything.
If you let them resubmit, it would almost be better to have a second, to duplicate the assignment and close the first assignment and let them resubmit on the second one. If you want to do it that way, you can see those comments and this comments, because you know I do set the copy thing and say resubmissions go here. So I would probably close the assignment before you grade it, so they can't resubmit while you're grading, and then all of a sudden they lose the comments that you put on there. That just seems to be a cleaner way. What were you saying about using Google Docs?
I use Google Docs for that because you can give them comments. If they fix it, they click mark as resolved, and then it's still a transcript of what you told them, and then it shows they took the action on it.
Okay.
Okay.
And I like the Google comment. The only thing, and maybe there's a way to do it that I don't know, it doesn't look like a paper to me, right? Whereas this turns it into pages, and they can do the header and the MLA. If I say I want an MLA formatted paper, I can actually see if I got an MLA formatted paper. But Google Docs, it's hard to know. I mean, you could kind of tell. Can you make it do the header and the pages per, where it says pool 1, pool 2? Can you make them do that on Google Docs? Okay. I guess I haven't done many submissions that way.
And I don't do many papers, but I do.
I'm trying to do more so that we're writing across the curriculum.
Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, that paper is new.
Well, they have to do a lot of writing. They don't just do papers, though. They have to do a lot of writing.
We don't do a lot of papers.
See, I'm trying to make them do more papers because my feeling is that they are inexperienced for where they should be at writing a paper and citing sources correctly. My big thing is trying to, I'm not going to give you a 0 if you plagiarize. I'm going to give you another paper if you plagiarize. And that one just didn't count for your grade, and I want you to learn how to not plagiarize. My first master's paper, my feedback from my first master's papers was, and this is almost a quote, I could care less what you think. You're supposed to be citing your sources, right? And I learned through my master's program that if I had half of my paper quotations and stuff from from my sources that I was writing about, I was going to get an A.
Yeah, you cited them.
And if I said exactly the same thing that they said, but didn't back it up with a citation, I was going to get a B or a C, at best, right? And I think a lot of times, I know we're off track, but I think a lot of times kids think that if they cite too many things, they're going to get dinged because they just plagiarize the whole thing. And I am like, it depends on how you do it. If there is a even and a flow, you can't just all of a sudden go, I hit a wall and there's a quote that made no sense there was no transition at all, right? But that's what I'm trying to get. Even on PowerPoints, I expect them to do the in-text citation at the end and a works cited at the end of their PowerPoint because they're just so used to grabbing stuff, and they'll say words they've never pronounced before, and I'm like, they're up here talking, and I'm like, do you have any idea what word you just said? And he's because they're reading off the screen because they're just used to copy and pasting too much stuff, and I feel like if I get them to cite stuff, it makes them think about what they're putting up there. Because I'm like, your whole thing can be from the internet as long as it's not, not all from, you know what I mean? As long as you have lots of. So I'm trying to do more just because of that. I will say honestly that even my bachelor's degree did not prepare me to write. I don't think high school prepared me to write well. My bachelor's, and I took technical writing courses. That's, as a computer programmer, I didn't write a whole lot. And then, my master's degree, that's all it was.
I do most of my stuff, though, with my ACT class, my writing, which is what is a little bit different because they're using prompts. And that's where most of my writing, I work with them in that way. So, which is for the written essay. So,
I don't question that the kids are writing at all. It's just whether they're used to writing with a purpose all the time.
Right.
So, anyway, off task a little bit. Does anybody have any questions on your?
I have a couple questions. If you're done with this topic.
Yeah, I was going to see if there was anything else we want to talk about.
When I have a passage that has, like we're trying to do some comprehension questions on, okay, and it's got maybe 3 to 5 questions on the passage, that same passage. Yeah. And I'm trying to put it into a quiz type thing, or an activity, or a lesson, or whatever. Okay. What I have been doing is typing out that entire passage, copying it then for each question in the question part. So I state the question, and then the passage that they're supposed to look back to is then down below that question. So
here's how I would do it. First of all, I'm gonna assume we're talking about a quiz.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I think that's the easiest. I'm just blah 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 in there, and then go down to the bit. Go ahead and say we're going to edit the quiz. So, in a quiz by default, the answers in the questions get scrambled by default without you doing anything, but the questions don't get scrambled. So when I go in here, for this kind of a quiz, I'm not going to hit the shuffle,
right?
Because you want to have the passage. But when I add, when I say I want to add a question, a question doesn't have to be a question. A question can also be what's called a description. That's not a question. If you say I want to add a description, all this is going to be is your passage, right?
Okay.
So they don't see this. Passage, I can spell. And that can be as big as you want. You can have videos in there. You can have pictures, whatever you want to in this block. And hit save changes. And now that's just something that's going to occur. So you can say, read this passage. The questions to follow are on this. Okay. So I put the passage in there, or the reading that I want them to do a response in, and then I add other questions. I'm just going to say from the question bank, just to add one on here. And then when I do this, like I said, I don't shuffle. And then if I want to preview this, just to show you what it looks like.
If they need to look back to the passage, like in paragraph 4, how does this character, what does this refer to?
Okay.
Or something. So but they can't see both of the questions at the same time.
That's a good statement.
Okay.
So you
They have to go back.
could do this, and here's what I would probably do in that case. So you don't have to retype anything. I'm going to change this for this example. I usually have where's that appearance? No.
You know, there is something you can do right there in the edit.
I'm looking for how many questions a page do they see? Is that on the edit quiz?
Go back to edit, okay, and see
Yeah,
where it says. See where that little thingy about right there. Okay.
Well, here's what I was going to say though. Because you put this in as a thing, you could have, and that's why I think it's in the edit settings where I say how many.
No,
Because for this it would be perfect. How many questions per do they see at one time? And I realize this isn't a question. Is it in layout? No.
New page, yeah, that's a new page every question.
Yeah.
Yeah, up
Yeah.
there,
So
go
you
down
want
in
multiple
page.
questions per page.
Oh, okay, 2 questions. So that's what I want. Okay. So just so they don't have to go back and forth, what I would do. Oh, and I left it. What I would do is, so that's going to be a page, and then I'm going to add from my question bank that question again, that comment again that I just added,
so that
every single time you don't have to retype it every time. That's where it is, right there.
Well, I just copy and paste
do that.
into the.
Yeah, what you could do. I mean, obviously I have a lot of questions, so I didn't get it. I thought I got it. Maybe I didn't get them both. Is it not letting me add it again? Why is it not letting me do that? I was going to say, if you did that, then.
But even so, when it's on the same page, they're not flipping pages and stuff, but they can't have both questions open at the same time.
No, they wouldn't be able to. I mean, if you did, you could have no page breaks in there, right? So it's all on one page if you wanted to. I guess my question is, do you want them to see more than one question at a time, or do you not want them to see more than one question?
Yeah, and I don't know that that's the issue. The issue I have is that they can look back to the passage, but even when I copy and paste it, they're still having to scroll down to see it.
Yeah, that's true. Especially if it's a long reading response that they're doing. There's got to be some scrolling down, where they read it, even if you have it on every single page, where it has shows the reading again, which I guess would be just as easy. If you have it copied, just plop it in there and then put the question at the bottom of it.
Right. Yeah.
So they're always seeing the reading that the question is.
But this is interesting too. How they can go back if they want to.
If they want
but
to,
don't
right?
have
So
to.
if they do it this way, where's my preview? Right there. Oh, there's my question. So there would be their reading, and there would be a question right underneath it. But they can, as long as you leave it free, they can always go back and forth through the thing. So I mean, maybe you just have so to minimize scrolling, you keep it only one thing in a page, but they read that, then they go to the question. You can see it's numbered. And they can always just click here and go back to the reading again. I mean, that's not that difficult to click back.
What they've been, another thing that we have done is our paired reading texts are on Reading Street Online, and so they open that tab, and then they have this open, and so they're just flipping to the other tab to read the passage, the answer, and then they go back to the question, so they can always just, so they still are flipping back and forth, so it's to get them used to that.
Which really, for any online test, they're going to have to. I mean, to some extent, if they're going to have to scroll or go to. I mean, and I don't know how it is on the air test and on the map testing. Is it on a different page or on the same page, and then they?
It's kind of split in half.
Yeah,
the passage
it's usually locked, and then they scroll over.
Oh, is that how it works? Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any way to make a question look like that on Moodle. I don't think so. I don't think there's any way to do the
Can you
split
split the screen if we do two
hard
different
for them to
tabs?
scroll up and down,
Say that again?
Can we split the screen, put Moodle on half the screen?
Oh, you
and
definitely
the
could do
other
that.
Oh,
website
yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. I mean, that's
Okay, how do
something
you
they
do
could
that?
do. Just hit the button, and I mean, if I go and pull that out there, so there's two tabs, all I have to do is go down to the bottom and say show windows side by side, and automatically.
Where was that?
Any place on your bottom bar, if you right click, one of the options is show windows side by side.
Okay.
So if you have more than two windows open, it's going to look a lot worse than this.
You just have to make sure your two tabs are in different windows, like they can't be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Bottom bar.
What, go back to the questions again. Okay, and to get that first, where did you go? I didn't remember. You scroll down and you hit what instead of the
What are we
question?
talking about? To get what? It's just one of the question types.
Yeah.
So when I'm editing the quiz,
Right.
when I go to add a new question,
Okay.
at the very bottom is it's called description. I don't know why it's called description.
Description, got it. Okay.
Thanks for coming, Chad.
That makes sense. Okay.
But it's a way to not repeat the text all the time. Like you throw a passage in there, because really that's more like what the questions look like. Usually it's a reading passage and then a question and a question and a question, kind of thing. At least that's the way the OAAs were when we loaded all those. It seemed like those were that way. I apologize that Dan couldn't stay. Did you get anything out of today?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. That right there was something.
Okay.
Oh, I know. I didn't get my question answered on that. Oh, are you?
No.